Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I was just sitting here thinking about something I wanted to cover in a video, and then I remembered that every year when the holidays start rolling around, Jerry Ward is one of the first YouTubers to jump up and tell people that they don't need to be eating food at their family gatherings. If they're serious about their diet, they're going to bring their own food. So let's talk about this topic for a bit and why this is really a problem. Why it can lead to an unfulfilled life and may not even help you with your goals. So let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing. Let's do a little bit of crafting and talk about this. First of all, Jerry Ward always jumps up and says this. It's going to be coming up. He's going to make a couple videos on this later this year, so I'm going to get preemptive before Halloween, before we get to the Thanksgiving and Christmas videos everyone makes coming out. Jerry does all this, and tells people that if you're serious about your goals, you're not going to show up to family gatherings and eat the food your mom, your grandma cooks, everything else. And you got a guy who advises people to do this, and I think it shows some problems here. First of all, this is a guy telling you to make these sacrifices and actually strain your family relationships, reduce your fun and happiness and enjoyment with your socializing with your loved ones, so that you can obtain some bodybuilding goal. Now, this is a guy who has himself been trying for 20 years to get a pro card in bodybuilding and can't do it. He switches over to men's physique and he decides he's going to go pro in that, gets to a pro qualifier. This year, he places dead last. Now, this is someone who is making these sacrifices to place dead last and giving you guys advice on that. Now, you guys can argue all you want about me and my competitive endeavors, but you guys haven't seen me place worse than a bronze medal at a meet, and that bronze medal earned me a world's invite. Just throwing that out there. At least I place well. And meat prep does require sacrifices. My diet gets pretty strict going into meat prep because I have to cut water and everything. But that being said, this whole idea of sacrificing your quality of life for some sort of bodybuilding goal, it shows an actual form of mental illness. I mean, this is a mental illness when you're at a point to where something that you started doing to make yourself feel better, to make yourself happier, to improve your quality of life, because that's why most of us train. Now, a lot of guys are like, well, I started training for girls, or I started training to look more intimidating in my neighborhood because I live in a rough neighborhood. People have a lot of different reasons, but you know what? Those are all to improve your happiness and quality of life. Why? Because if you think getting girls is going to make you happy, then you're trying to work on improving your happiness, right? If you think that, not getting beat up in your neighborhood because you live in a rough neighborhood growing up is going to make you, that's going to give you a happier life to not get your ass kicked. You're doing these things because you want to be happier and have a more fulfilling life in some way. That's why everyone starts training, no matter what they state their reason is. That's the reason, right? Or we're just doing it for our general health, general fitness, and to feel better, to look better, whatever your reasons are. But when people get to this point, they jump into these things and they develop these neurotic ideas. And I think the bodybuilding world is responsible for that. It's taking something that should be a fit activity that improves your fitness, improves your happiness, improves your quality of life. Yeah, improves your quality of life. And turn it into something to where it's all about sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice. And it's sacrifice for what? To look better in the mirror? Because if you're not making a living on it, this is just about vanity. And here's the thing when it comes to quality of life. Do you know what has been noted to be the most important quality of life factor that improves longevity? People who have meaningful relationships, whether it's a loved one and a partner or with their family or their close friends. We find that people who, as they get older, tend to do better, live longer, and be healthier. Oftentimes one of the biggest factors is the quality of the relationships they have with their loved ones. And even as you get older, again, carrying that on with grandchildren and stuff, well, when you're showing up to family gatherings, you're ostracizing your loved ones by not eating their food. And even though they might pretend like they understand you make these great sacrifices, they really don't. You are basically setting yourself out and choosing not to participate in the activity. And I'm not saying when you go to some family function you have to eat 10 pieces of pie until you vomit. I'm not saying you have to be a glutton. But for the most part, there's going to be plenty of food at any big family gathering you can get away with eating. And you know what? Even eating a piece of pie or two once a month at some family get-together is absolutely not going to inhibit your fat loss goals in any meaningful way. it's not going to inhibit your results, because then you're like, oh no, I ended up going 200 calories over my maintenance one time. You know that's not going to make any significant difference in your fat loss. In fact, for people who are dieting, remember the studies I talked about the other day with the overfeeding and the carbs and everything? We found that in those studies that actually just overfeeding carbs, the first 24 hours you do it, you don't gain any body fat from it. If you've been in a dietary deficit, the first 24 hours you don't gain a single gram of body fat in the studies. You have to chronically overeat for several days, a couple days to gain fat. You might gain some water, but so what? And so you lose one day to where you're not losing fat. Well, if you've been dieting or losing fat or whatever for 30 days out of the month, you diet for 29 days that month and you don't lose fat on a single day. You think that's going to matter 3 months from now? 6 weeks from now? It's not going to matter one bit. But you know what? The fact that you've ostracized yourself from your loved ones at a family gathering, that's going to be noted. You are going to be making yourself an outsider, and it is going to affect your relationships, particularly when you refuse to eat a slice of grandma's pecan pie, or your mom's lasagna that she cooks at these things. So what? If you're worried about gaining fat, learn portion control. Eat less of it. Eat a bunch of vegetables before you go in, so you're not as full or you're not as hungry. You can do things at these events to make it easier, or that's where intermittent fasting shines. People could come in and do a little fasted cardio first and just not eat breakfast and go into these events, so that you give yourself a little more wiggle room so that the extra calories from all the junk doesn't affect you. It's not that big of a deal to make minor changes so that you can participate and be part of the activities and things that your loved ones are doing, including enjoying food. And this whole idea of, again, you're going to take chicken breast, steamed chicken breast and broccoli in Tupperware to eat yourself at these big events so you don't have to eat the food. Think about how neurotic that is. In the bodybuilding world, that's normal, but you need to understand how mentally ill most bodybuilders really are. It has all sorts of narcissism and neurosis and addiction and everything else. And perfect example, Jerry advised everyone to do this. He's an addict. He's been addicted to multiple narcotics in the past and talks about it all the time. He's essentially just trading one addiction for another unhealthy behavior. And again, it's not emotionally healthy to think that way and to completely ostracize yourself and be so neurotic that you need to take plain baked or boiled chicken breast to Christmas or Thanksgiving or some other big family event, a family reunion, so that you don't eat a little bit of junk food. And you know what? That's something that everyone needs to remember. Eating a little junk food one time a month, because these big events don't happen more than once a month, has never ever made a single person fat in the history of the world. And every dietitian will tell you that, every sports dietitian will tell you that. You know what? Eating a little extra on the holidays and going a little overboard with it and having extra food, then extra slice of pie once a month at a big holiday or family get-together has never ever made a single human being fat, and it has never meaningfully contributed to your body fat. It's what you eat day in and day out for months on end that causes body fat gains, or enormous binges when you prolong them past about a day. It's the people who go on a binge and they eat an entire gallon of ice cream every day for 3 days straight. Then all of a sudden they've gained 4 pounds of fat that they then have to spend 2 weeks re-dieting off. But to go to a single family event that lasts half a day and to overeat, come on. In fact, there's going to be lean protein and veggies anyways. I mean, who has a Christmas with pies and all sorts of other stuff everywhere where there isn't tons of turkey breast already laying around? Or a Thanksgiving like that, or any of these big events, there's always going to be lean protein there. There's always going to be some veggies or salad or a veggie tray or something if they've gone through the trouble to cook all these pies and cakes and cookies also. I've never seen a family event that doesn't have some lean protein and veggies at least there as well, that you could also eat with all of it. And but seriously, think about that for a minute. Are any of your bodybuilding goals for most of you, or your physique goals, really so worth it that you can't unwind one day every now and then and enjoy food with your loved ones, and you have to feel like an outcast and bring all this stuff? Again, it's intentionally making yourself an outcast. And it is even saying to the people you love and care about that you're better for them and what they're eating isn't good enough for you. Again, it's not emotionally healthy. It's not good for your relationships, and it's not good for your own image, because, again, why be that neurotic? Are you making a living doing it? Are you going to make $100,000 this year by having 1 ounce less body fat? And people say, well, I compete in bodybuilding. Well, I've already shown repeatedly there's tons of data that competing in bodybuilding, even natural bodybuilding is extremely physically unhealthy, and it's emotionally and mentally unhealthy. There's nothing healthy about a competitive bodybuilding lifestyle. And you know what? I remember one natural bodybuilder years ago, an interview with him, a guy who normally eats clean most of the time, and he got ripped all the time. It was been Clarence Bass. I think that was his name, way back in the day. He said in an interview that, you know what, every Christmas, because he ate so well most of the time, that when he showed up there, his grandma loved him, and she insisted that he eat her pie and everything every Christmas, and he said he ate it and enjoyed every bite of it, and he was happy, and he looked forward to it every year because his grandma was still alive somehow at a very old age and made that pie, and he got to enjoy it. And you know what? He said at the end of the day, it didn't make any difference on his body fat. And he was doing this at an old age, and that was why it was impressive. He was up in his 40s or whatever at that time and still getting really lean, and had a really old grandmother who was still alive and making him pie, and he said he enjoyed every bite of it. And you know what? Maybe that's one reason the guy was healthy and successful doing this going up into an older age, because he had a little bit of balance in his life, and he enjoyed the things that mattered in life and the meaningful things, like having a grandmother who baked him pie every Christmas and was able to enjoy those things. He had a healthier outlook and approach to life. All these guys who you see on YouTube with their neurotic obsessions and hardcoreness, whether it's Jerry Ward or Rich Piana or any of these guys, you think they're really going to be alive and healthy in another 20 years? You think they're still going to be around? When these guys do finally start dropping dead, is that going to be a wake-up call for all of you to realize that maybe you shouldn't have been following their stupid-ass advice? Because they are morons, and they do give stupid advice. Harmful advice. And it really amazes me that people even follow it. But you know what? I guess that's marketing for you at the end of the day. But ultimately, guys, seriously, unwind a little bit and learn to realize that you're not going to get fat by eating a slice of pecan pie at Christmas or Thanksgiving, or even a family get-together that happens once a month. You're not going to get fat by eating some extra chips and dip while you're there. You're going to get fat by, eating too much food for weeks on end and not doing cardio and not being physically active enough, and sitting around drinking soda and eating fried food too much. That's usually what's going to cause it for most people, unless you're a chronic obsessive overeater due to some leptin issue, which I can understand. But you know what? You still don't get there from just overeating a little bit at Thanksgiving or Christmas. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.